There was a floorboard in Daniel's childhood bedroom that he trusted more than any bank his family ever used. 30 years later, sitting in a boardroom that cost more to decorate than that whole house was worth, his hands started shaking the exact same way they used to hovering over a stock ticker instead of a floorboard. The market had dipped that morning. Nothing serious, but something in Daniel wasn't doing math anymore. Something in him was doing panic. Before anybody could talk him down, he'd sold off a chunk of his portfolio at a loss, just to make the feeling in his chest quit. I'm Grandpa Ben, folks, and this here's his story. See, Daniel didn't grow up with much. 3 boys crammed into one bedroom in a rented house outside Toledo, bunk beds against one wall. A mattress on the floor for whoever drew the short straw that year. Wasn't a door on that room that locked. Wasn't a shelf that was really his. Wasn't much of anything a boy could point to and say that's mine, and nobody's touching it. Money in that house came and went like weather. Good weeks. Bad weeks. His mama counting quarters at the kitchen table with a look on her face that Daniel understood long before he understood why. So at 8 years old, Daniel started his own little operation. He found a loose floorboard under the bunk bed. Underneath it he kept a cigar box empty when he found it, pulled out of some uncle's trash. Every dollar he came across went into that box. Birthday money, mowing money. A lucky quarter off the sidewalk. Then the floorboard went right back down over it. Wasn't much in there, ever $20 maybe, on a real good month. But it was his. Nobody knew about it. And that was worth more to Daniel than the money itself. Then one Tuesday, coming home from school, he found the floorboard pried up and the box gone. His middle brother had found it and helped himself needed cash bad enough that week to talk himself into it, and spent years after, by all accounts, wishing he hadn't. Wasn't malicious so much as a 14-year-old solving a 14-year-old problem the wrong way. But to Daniel, standing there staring at that empty gap in the floor, it wasn't just money that got taken. It was the one proof he'd had that enough was something a person could actually hold on to. He never told a soul how much that day stuck with him. Why would he? He grew up, worked himself half to death through school, built himself a career in finance, of all things got sharp enough, with numbers, that folks paid him real money for his opinion on theirs, and somewhere in a house of his own, with a wife named Carol and a little girl named Maya who was starting to lose her baby teeth, Daniel was still, in more ways than he'd ever admit out loud, checking under that floorboard. He kept a good deal of cash sitting in a safe in his closet, real bills, on top of every proper account a man in his position ought to have. His advisor called it irrational more than once, gentle about it, the way you'd point out a mine's fly was down. Daniel always had a reason ready, rainy day fund, just in case. But that safe wasn't a rainy day fund, if he'd ever sat still long enough to look at it honest. Truth was, it was just a bigger cigar box. And here's what really would have surprised that 10-year-old boy Daniel didn't only hoard. He spent too, sometimes wild, on things that had no earthly business in a rational budget. A watch that cost more than his first car. a boat he used maybe 4 times a year, not because he needed any of it, but because some part of him was still trying to prove something to a bedroom that didn't exist anymore. He was hoarding with one hand and spending wild with the other, and never once put together that both were coming from the exact same old wound. Carol noticed it before he ever did. Noticed how a good month at work made him spend big, and a bad month made him lock the safe twice and check it a 3rd time before bed. One night, tired and not thinking too hard about her words, she just said what she saw. "Daniel, honey, that safe isn't keeping us safe. It's keeping some old fear of yours company." He didn't have much of an answer for that, just went to bed. It sat with him longer than she probably knew. Then came the Tuesday Maya turned 9 same age Daniel had been, though he never said so out loud, and Carol found her hiding her allowance in a shoebox under her own bed, so nobody takes it. When she told Daniel that evening, something in him went quiet in a way no market crash ever managed. That weekend, without really planning to, Daniel drove the 3 hours back to Toledo. The rented house was long sold. Different family living there now, but his mama had moved into a little place nearby and still had one box of his old things tucked in her closet, and in that box, he about couldn't believe it, was the cigar box. Turned out his brother had felt guilty enough, years back, to hand it over to their mama's keeping, and it had sat there in the dark ever since, waiting on him without either of them planning it that way. Daniel sat down on his mama's back steps with it in his lap for a good while before he even opened the lid. Just sat there. Rain wasn't falling, but the evening had that same still heavy feeling to it, like something was about to. When he finally opened it, inside was $7 and change, a friendship bracelet gone brittle with age, and a folded-up drawing he must have made around age 9 stick figures of him and his brothers standing in front of a house, and above it, in a kid's crooked handwriting, "Our house, we're rich." He sat with that a long time. Read it over more than once, like it might say something different the second time. $7. That's what all that fear had been guarding this whole time. A grown man had spent 30 years keeping his grown-up books the way an 8-year-old would, and the whole treasure at the bottom of it wasn't even $8. It was a kid's drawing that thought his family was rich, just because they were all still under one roof. Daniel didn't cry easy. He cried some, sitting on them steps. He went home and didn't close that safe up dramatic-like. Didn't empty it out in one grand gesture. He just started being honest about what it was actually for, kept a real, reasonable emergency fund. The kind his advisor had been telling him to keep for years, and let the rest of that money go to work the way a grown man's money ought to. The watches and the boat didn't disappear overnight, but the need behind buying them got quieter once he understood what it had really been trying to say. As for Maya's shoebox, he didn't take it from her. Didn't lecture her over it either. He just sat down with her one evening and told her, plain as he could, about a floorboard and a box and a brother who took something that wasn't his. "It's all right to want somewhere safe for your things, sweet pea," he told her. "Just don't let safe turn into scared without you noticing the difference." Took your daddy 30 years to learn that one. Last I heard, Daniel keeps that same box on his office desk these days. Empty now except for the one drawing. Not for hiding money in anymore. Just so he remembers, every time the market gets shaky, exactly whose voice he's about to listen to his own. Or a scared kid who never got a door that locked. Now, maybe you never had a floorboard of your own. But I'd wager most folks watching this have got some version of it, some old room, some old lack, still quietly making your decisions for you without you ever hiring it for the job. Sit with that a moment before you answer. Then tell me down in the comments what's still sitting in your childhood bedroom, dictating your grown-up choices. And if this one found you at the right moment, stick around folks, I've got more stories like it every week.